You couldn't possibly render that as, it's vowel rich. I suspect that this is why the King James Version of the English Bible, which was translated largely out of Greek, still, the King James Version was written at the same time, roughly, as the plays of Shakespeare, at a time when English was at its sort of super best. I don't think as a scripture it has its equal anywhere. Modern translations are, well, so to me they're disturbingly modern. The Old Testament King James Version has a rhythm and a cadence to it that is just marvelous, and I suspect that is no accident. That the classical Greek from which it was translated, they clung pretty quickly in the 17th century English to that word. Anyway, that's how these poems came to be written down. And they became thus, once you had a copy of the Iliad, you didn't have to memorize it, although you were considered, to the degree that you did, precisely to that degree you were considered educated, but you could read them for pleasure and profit and fun if you were fairly well-to-do. Nowadays, of course, anybody can. You can buy them in a book, which has been printed and therefore is available in its millions and thousands. Only an educated few could afford these copies, but that was a heck of a lot more. Those educated and wealthy few who could afford these copies was a heck of a lot more than the people who were prepared to memorize them. Sit down, kid, learn this, and you'll be a minstrel like your daddy one day. And these people used to go around and literally bum their meals and earn their bread by reciting from the Iliad and the Odyssey. The aristocratic warrior class who wanted to hear these stories were incapable of memorizing them. They wanted to hear from them, they wanted to hear these great things, they wanted to hear the lovely rhythms of the speech, but then, they also wanted to drink and eat and womanize and fight and do all the other things that make life worth interesting. Literature is a nice little add-on for those who are, but a real man, he appreciates the value of these things, but your minstrel had a status somewhat like a priestly status. He was possessed of a knowledge that was worthwhile and was pleasant to listen to and reassuring and everything else, but he obviously put in a whole lot of time and effort in learning it. Now, don't get the idea that the minstrel will say, "Hi, here I am. I'm the minstrel. I come to recite the Iliad." He'd say, "I am a minstrel." And someone in the crowd would say, "Tell us about the fight between Hector and Achilles." And he'd go through a preamble, and then he'd start going through in intimate detail about the fight between Hector and Achilles and so on. And they'd sit back, "Oh, that was wonderful." And some man might say, "Now tell us about how Patroclus tried to climb the wall." And some woman would say, no, what would the woman want to hear?
They gave it the division of the apple.
Yeah, or, tell us about some of the scenes, or tell us about what Helen and Paris did. And, he'd have that part too. They have everything that you'd want, He wouldn't sit down at the beginning but on command, he would work himself. And the poems are written in such a way that you can almost see they're like handholds, little stretches of the text that don't really have anything to do with the narrative, but are convenient as little sort of memory hooks. If you want to talk about Achilles and Hector, there's a preamble there, and it's got not a heck of a lot to do with Achilles and Hector, but it gets your mind in gear, and pretty soon your mind and tongue are flowing to the part that they wanted to hear. I'll show you. I've got a translation. I'll be showing you. It shows a fight between Menelaus and Paris. And Paris is just at the point. Menelaus has knocked him down, and he's got him by the helmet. And he's got him by the helmet, and the helmet right around here, the strap is right around here, and he's got him.
The KLCDI soccer practice will be canceled. Instead, there will be a meeting held in room 313 right after school.
And he's dragging him back to the Greek lines. It looks as though Paris, you know, the ravisher, the seducer.
Would Shelley O'Reilly come to the principal's office? Would Mr. Hamilton call the principal's office, please? Thank you.
He's about to be dragged into the Greek lines, and all of a sudden Aphrodite comes along, and by her magic she snaps the strap, and it comes away in Menelaus' hand, and he's so confused that Paris, you know, disappears into a cloud, which happens to be right there, a misty cloud. Again, it's Aphrodite, and she whisks him away from the battlefield. Guess where? To the bedroom of Helen. That's right. Suddenly, the guy's being dragged into the Greek lines, and all of a sudden, that's a nice change. And you can tell, you know, the poet needs the change in mood and location to keep the memory going, because if you have to go through every last bit, then he'll come back to the fight. It makes it easier in telling, because the poems were meant to be told, not meant to be read. You couldn't, you know, hi, I'm a minstrel, right here the other. You have your mind. Just about, I don't know, 2012, I was looking at my...
Would Samantha Jessica Markowitz come to the main office after school? Samantha Jessica Markowitz?
What's notes about that neck and a pocket book of the Odyssey slightly smaller. They did it.